Today we're making 3 different floral envelope Procreate projects, all with simple shapes and all are beginner friendly. The color palette for these projects is free as always. Just tap on the link in the video description and you can download and install it. I'm going to start by creating a brand new canvas. I've listed my specs on screen that I'll be using for all 3 projects, and let's begin. I've got my color palette loaded in, and the top one will be our first project, second row will be our second project, and the third row will be our last project, just to keep everything a bit more organized. So we're going to be creating the green envelope project first. So let's set the background color. I'm going to tap on the background color layer, and I'm going to select the lightest green color, which is the first one on the top row. For all 3 of the projects, they'll be using these hand-drawn envelope stamps from my newest set, which I'll leave a link to on screen and in the video description. If you'd prefer to just draw your own envelope from scratch, I'll also leave a link in the video description to a tutorial on how to do that. So for this first project, we're going to grab the pointed flap closed outline version. So I'm going to tap on that. I'm going to change my color to the white one, which is the last one on the top row, and just use your finger to stamp it in, and this will guarantee full opacity for this brush. So this is a little bit larger than I want to go, so I'm just going to select it and scale it down. Make sure you have uniform down here selected. It's just going to be a little bit above center. And once you're happy, you can deselect. Next, I'm going to add some decorative foliage around my envelope. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to grab my darkest green color. For all the doodles that I'll be drawing, I'm going to be using my Inky Edge Pro brush for my beautiful lettering brush set, but you can use any mono weight brush that you would like. I just love the texture that this brush has, and it's pressure sensitive, so I can get some thicker strokes pretty easily whenever I need them. I'll show you some of my favorite foliage types. My brush size is about 5% for this. So first I'll add in kind of like a fern-shaped foliage. So this one's pretty simple. I leave it as outline too and make it somewhat symmetrical on each side. Okay, now that I have those in, I'm going to drag this layer underneath my envelope. That way you don't see these lines and they tuck behind the envelope. If you see any areas that cross over, all you have to do is grab your eraser, make it kind of small, and just tuck that back there. The next foliage type is going to be kind of like a eucalyptus, and I like keeping all the different foliage types on different layers just to stay super organized. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm still using the exact same color, and this time I'm going to have my eucalyptus go behind some of the elements that I've already drawn. So I can just draw it in, and then I can just add on basically these oval shapes. And when I get to where things are intersecting, I don't like how it crosses over my outline leaves. So I'm actually going to erase that away. I still have a small eraser so I can be more detailed here. So when I'm drawing my little round bits in, I'm going to be very aware of that. I don't have to do a ton of these, but I do want to give it a little bit of a sense of depth here. And change up the scale whenever you can. It just makes it feel more organic and dynamic. Okay, let's create a brand new layer. Now I'm going to do a really large leaf element that's just going to fill in the rest of my gaps and give it a bit more personality. Once you have your foliage in, we're just going to add in some cute little hearts. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to switch to my pink color. I still have my same brush selected, the Inky Edge Pro brush. And I'm just going to put little hearts that change direction and size throughout all the foliage. And then I'm just going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to hit my wrench, canvas, toggle on drawing guide just so I have a straight line, and I'm going to write my message. And that completes our first project. So I'm going to create a brand new canvas using the exact same specs as this one, and we'll move on to project number 2. Let's define our background color. So tap on the background color layer. It's going to be this very first pink on the second row. And then on the first layer, we're going to stamp in our envelopes. So within the hand-drawn envelopes brush set, I'm going to select the mini pointed flap opened and filled brush. And I'm going to change my color to the second one on the second row, and then once again, tap it in with your finger. So I've got my envelope, scale it down to the size that you'd like to use it at. I'm going to have quite a few flowers popping out of this one, so I want it a little bit smaller than I normally would use it. I'm going to change the color of this inside, that way it gives it a little bit of extra depth. So on the same layer, I'm just going to grab the third color on the second row and just drag this color right into that section. and that will color it. Next, I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to switch back to the Inky Edge Pro brush, and I'm going to grab the second to the last color on the second row, and I'm going to draw in all of my daisies. So the daisies, I'm going to have some that are open, so just put as many petals as you'd like to on these. These are really simple. You know, these are kind of more like echinacea than daisies. Okay, I think that feels pretty good. I might make them a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to fill all these in, so you can just grab the color and drag it in and then hit continue filling with recolor. Make sure the flood level is less than 100. Mine's at 95, and then I can just drag these crosshairs into the open area that I want to fill, and then I can tap into all the other areas and fill it really quickly that way. You just have to make sure that all of your paths are closed, otherwise the color will bleed out and into your background. So if you have any gaps in your outline, it won't work. All right, deselect. Now I'm going to put the stamens in, so create a brand new layer. I'm going to grab this orangish color. It is the 5th color on the second row. And now we're going to put the stems in of these, so I need to create a brand new layer underneath the 2 layers that I just created. So I'm going to tap on the envelope layer, create a brand new layer, and draw all of these using the same color as the stamen, and draw a line coming into the envelope. Okay, let's draw some leaves on these. And then I'm just going to clean up this bottom part. I don't want it to overlap right there, so I'm just going to use my eraser and push it back a little bit. And now we can fill in those leaves using the same technique that we used previously. So drag the color dot in, hit continue filling with recolor, find those crosshairs wherever they went, and then tap in those areas. That's all set, so we're going to create a sense of depth by just filling this up a little bit more with some extra foliage. So I like creating my furthest back foliage first, since it's going to command the least amount of attention. So I'm going to create a brand new layer right above the envelope layer and choose my darkest brown color. And these ones are just going to come up and be kind of like gap fillers for me. So this is a really similar type of foliage as we just did in the first project. If things get hard to see, you can always turn off the visibility of another layer to make sure everything looks right. And I'm going to fill all these in. Turn on the other layer to see how it's all coming together. Now I'm going to add in some foliage that's going to overlap some of these daisy leaves or echinacea leaves. And then we'll see if we have any other gaps that we need to fill after that. So I'm going to come all the way up to the very top, create a brand new layer. I'm going to switch to the 4th color on the second row, and these ones are going to be similar to that eucalyptus shape. So I'm going to just create a sense of depth by overlapping different elements with different elements. All right, we can turn off some of these other layers so I can see everything really well. And let's fill these in. I don't think I want this foliage to cover up the actual flower. I just want it to cover up the leaves of the flower. So I'm going to turn on my other layers and just drag this underneath the flower components. So right there, and that feels better. I'm noticing a few areas that I'd like to fill in just a little bit more. So I'm going to add something right here, and then this one will be done. So I'm going to create a brand new layer right behind this layer that I just created. So I'm going to tap on the layer beneath it, create a brand new layer, and select the dark brown color and just fill this in with some large pointed leaves. Let's turn everything on, zoom out, and now we've got a nice sense of depth right there and fullness. So that part's complete, and then you can just add in any message that you'd like. So I'm going to create a brand new layer up at the very top, switch to the white color, turn my guide on so I can write in straight lines. And there's project number 2. So we're going to use the exact same specs and create our third and final project. We are on our last one, so it's basically combining things that we did with the first two projects. We're going to add some florals and foliage behind the envelope. We're going to have a letter this time coming out of the envelope, and I'm going to show you a really easy selection trick that you may not know about. So let's tap on the background color, and this one's going to be a dark background, so we're going to grab the first color on the bottom row, and then we're going to stamp in our envelope. So make sure you're on layer 1. I'm going to switch to the second color on the bottom row, head into our envelope, stamps, and I'm going to select the business square flap opened. So tap on that and then tap it in with your finger. I'm actually having a message come out of it, so it might actually do better if it's just a little bit below center. Now let's draw in our elements that are going to be behind it, our flowers and just some really simple foliage. So create a brand new layer. I'm going to draw in the foliage first and then pop in the flowers around it. So I'm going to switch to this last color on the bottom row, switch my brush back to the Inky Edge Pro brush. On a top corner and a bottom corner, I'm going to draw those elements in. Okay, fill these leaves in. And I'm going to make sure that these sit behind the outline. So I'm just making sure that these come all the way to that outline, make everything look a little bit cleaner. So drag that underneath the envelope. Let's pop some flowers in. So these ones are going to be daisies again. So create a brand new layer. I'm going to grab the pink color and just some straight on daisies, different sizes and kind of tucked between some of this foliage. Okay, let's fill those in. And I'm just going to add a few white ones too. So grab the white color, create a brand new layer. Okay, let's add in the stamens. So create a brand new layer. And these stamens are going to be the fourth color on the bottom row. Now let's add in our letter. So I'm going to create a brand new layer on top of the envelope stamp layer. And I'm going to switch to my white color. And I'm just going to freehand draw this letter poking out and be very careful along this bottom line and fill it in. Let's write our message on a brand new layer right above that. So I'm going to write mine in the pink color. And I mentioned a selection trick. So right here in the inside of the envelope, maybe we want that to appear just a little bit darker to give it more of a sense of depth behind the letter. So one way you could do it is just drag that color right in there, but then it's part of this layer. And I don't want it to be part of that layer. I want more flexibility with my design if I change my mind later on. So I would prefer to have this shape be on its own layer without being a part of my stamp layer. So I'm going to undo that. So what I'm going to do is create a brand new layer right above the envelope layer. We're going to change the blend mode to multiply. And I'm going to change my color to this dark brown color. It's the same color as our background, but it's going to appear even darker because there's a multiply blend mode applied to it. And in order to make the selection, we need to have the layer selected where we're going to create the selection from. So I'm going to tap on the layer with the envelope. I'm going to tap on my selection icon up here, and I'm going to switch this over to automatic. And then I'm just going to tap in the area that I want selected. So tap right there, and it gives me the shape automatically. So now I can come back to my layers, tap on this brand new layer that we created. We have the dark brown selected with the multiply blend mode, and I can just tap on this layer thumbnail and choose fill layer. And now you can see I've got a darker fill color applied, and now it's on its own layer. So I can change this color later on if I want to really easily. It's no longer attached to the entire envelope. So if I change this one color, the rest of the envelope color is not going to change. So that's why it's just a smarter way of working. So there you have 3 versions of floral envelopes. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you next time.